it's weird how drugs and art, any kind of art, they often go hand in hand.
They kind
Whether
of
it be just like
intertwine.
alcohol, like a lot of writers are known for being alcoholics because they can like become in tune with themselves easier with alcohol.
Right.
Like Edgar Allan Poe, he was notorious for drinking.
Stephen King did a lot of coke for a while.
Yeah.
He was a big cokehead, but he was an alcoholic too. It's because I think writers are weird. They're a different breed. They're a really different breed because they're so in tune with like their own head. Because like when you think about it, you have to create entirely new people. Like when you write a book and there's multiple characters, you know, you have to create each one of those people, you know. And it's almost like you need a separate book for each person just to remind you like what they're like. I've been trying to read this book by David Foster Wallace. It's called Infinite Jest. It's 1,500 pages long, and it's 5 different plots that all intertwine towards the end. And there's like 10 or 15 different characters. It's hard for me to keep them all straight, but they each have their own life. Like they each have their own energy. Like it almost feels like there's...
And they don't know each other?
Not yet, but they do end up eventually meeting each other towards the end of the book. But they each are so unique and they're so individual and they're so defined. Like there's like it feels like they're real people, but they're not. They're made up. They all came from this one dude's head. And it just blows my mind that, you know, people have the ability to do that.
It's usually just like they take everything from reality, so I'm sure those 15 people are based off actual 15 people.
I think there's a little bit of the author in each one of those people too.
Like J.K. Rowling, every Harry Potter character, she said she knows the person in real life, and she like made him into a fairy tale. Yeah,
that's interesting. There's a section of the book Infinite Jest that deals with a rehab clinic, and a lot of the time when the author talks about addiction and different kinds of like highs, it seems very, very realistic. And so after the book came out, people were like, you know, were you addicted to like heroin for a while? And he would never say. Like he would never tell anybody.
Okay,
you know.
That's your answer there if he's not saying it.
Well, he just, you know, he would let it speak for itself. You know, he never really told you what it was supposed to be about. He just always told people that it was a satire. It was a satire of the culture of the 90s. It's a really, really good book so far. It's just so dense.
What's it called?
Infinite Jest. It's about a movie called Infinite Jest that is so good. People sit down and they watch it and they rewind it and they watch it and they do that until they die.
It's about a movie?
Yeah. The book is about a movie.
So there was a movie first, and he wrote a book based on the movie.
In the book, the main plot of the book is about a movie that was made.
And the movie, was it actually made, or it's just...
No, it's like, this is a fictional movie that pushes the plot along. The movie's called
fucking
Infinite
ridiculous.
Jest. It's crazy. But the movie is so good that people want to do nothing but watch it. And so they get stuck in their chair and they watch it and they don't eat, they don't drink, they die. And if people try and stop them from watching it, they like kill people so that they can keep watching the movie.
See, I love writing, but for some reason, I think it's hard for me to accept, how am I trying to say this? Like my thoughts and like the way I view things and the way I write and everything, like I'm like very in tune with like what I can do. So it's like when I'm reading somebody else's work, it's not that I don't appreciate it, but it's like I don't want to give them their proper respect. You know, it's kind of like a pride thing.
Really?
It's weird. I don't want to. It's not that because I know a lot of people can write better than me. I don't know how to put this into words, but it's.
Does it feel sort of like? Do you feel like the author sounds pretentious sometimes, or like sometimes they're trying to prove how clever they are?
No, not that.
So you don't want to like let them?
No, it's no like ill thoughts. It's just, I guess kind of what I'm trying to say is I don't want what they're writing to alter how I view things and how I write, because I don't want to.
I see.
I don't want to like say if I seen like a way a sentence was punctuated, I don't want that to influence me to punctuate a sentence in that way. I like to just do it how I do it.
Right. You want to be like isolated from all outside influences when you write.
Yeah.
I can see that.
It's kind of like when people are making albums. Here goes the music again.
Right.
They just don't listen. They're not in tune with like hip hop at that time because they don't want to be influenced by the sound. They want to create their own sound.
Right. I think everybody has influences, no matter what. You know, even subliminally. Like after I read David Foster Wallace for a while, he's known for these really big, long like sentences. And sometimes when I write, I end up writing really, really long descriptive sentences, kind of like David Foster Wallace in a way. And I've also read some books from the guy who wrote Fight Club, Chuck Palahniuk, I think is his name, and he's very, very visual. So I tend to describe things very like intensely, like with detail that's like doesn't make sense. Like if I was describing this room right now, I'd like start with the floor, like the pattern in the floor, and like the table and like the legs on the table and how it's attached to the wall. And there's a TV above the wall. It's a flat screen. It's about 2 feet away from the table. You know, like you don't need all of that, but it's just I want it to be there.
See, I'm detailed, but it's like you have to understand what I'm saying to understand what I'm saying. Like I speak in code a lot, where everything is like a fucking metaphor, and I don't know how to like break that in my head. Like it just has to be like a broad metaphor where I think people are understanding it.
Right.
But I don't think people actually do. Like this paper that I'm writing for class right now, it was supposed to be, I don't know if I'll get docked for it or what, but it was supposed to be a pathology of every like how a school through today influenced how I write. So I'm supposed to talk about like English classes that I took, English teachers that I had, and like life in general, how it influenced me.
Right.
But instead, since I love music so much, I wrote about how rap allowed me to understand like literary devices and stuff, like foreshadowing and stuff like that. So I'm talking, instead of teachers, I'm using rappers like Kendrick and Cole, because they're all different, and how they influence the way I write and how I see words.
Right.
Because they're very visual.
Yeah, I mean that makes a lot of sense, because they get a lot more personal with you than teachers do. And they're not necessarily telling you how to write either.
Yeah. That's exactly what I wrote about. I think my thesis was, for this paper, I didn't want to choose teachers who forced me to appreciate somebody else's writing. I wanted to write about the teachers that I chose, or something like that.
Right. It's weird writing. Writing is weird because, for one, the English language is so broad that you can write it in basically any way, and if you write it how you speak it, then that's correct. Like that's the language that you use. But in school, if you write a sentence that's too long, they tell you it's a run-on. If you don't use the right kind of punctuation, they tell you where to put it.
Yeah.
You know, it almost like, I hated those writing classes because it like constricted, my ability to express myself on the page. Yeah. And I also hated classes where they made me write a paper, but they made me write the intro and then the middle and the third part and then the ending. Like I didn't want to do that. I never wanted to plan anything out. Everything I wrote was always start to finish. Like I never planned anything out. It was just always start to finish. It was just always like train of thought.
That's exactly what my class is about. The class is called Problems in Teaching Writing, and they talk about how a student.
This guy's coming in here.
Close at 11.
Okay. Yep. Gotcha. Thank you.
And they talk about how a student obviously doesn't understand like the concept of writing a paper like the teacher does. So basically it's trying to teach, it's a class for teachers. I don't know why I really took it, but they're trying to teach the teachers to put themselves in the student's shoes and allow them to be their own writer, but also still keeping like the structure of writing there.
Right.
And I have a horrible experience. I took a creative writing class last summer, and I was super stoked actually, because I like writing, and it was about poems and stuff like that. But I got fucking graded for content, and that just like discouraged me so much. Like,
It's-
how's it gonna be a creative writing class,
It's so
but I'm literally
ironic.
getting docked for like the fucking stories I'm telling?
Yeah, it's ironic, right?
It's
how,
so
how can they
annoying.
tell you how to be creative?
Yeah.
Or how can they judge your creativity?
And I think it was
at
just the
all?
teacher though.
You think so?
She
Who
was-
was it?
Um,
Oh, well, you can't-
Sandman, like some big lesbian
Salmon?
bitch. Sandman.
Sandman.
And I asked, because it was a type of class where you make a portfolio throughout the whole semester,
Mhm.
and then you turn that in. And I asked for my portfolio back, and she's like, I'm not going to be in town for the rest of the summer. You have to get it in the beginning of fall. And I emailed her again beginning of fall to get it, and she wouldn't give it back.
What? That's weird.
And I gave her like the teacher reviews. I gave her
Mhm.
like a horrible one because that shit was ridiculous.
Did I ever tell you about my journalism teacher that I had?
Mhm.
So I showed up to class. I missed 2 classes before I showed up to the class because I registered late. And I was super stoked for this journalism class because I thought for a while that I wanted to write like articles. Like I thought, I could start with like stuff around campus, and I wanted to get in like sports articles, which I thought
Mhm.
that would be cool. And so I went to class every single day after I missed class. And I talked to him. I was like, I signed up late. It's my fault. I didn't realize the deadline. But I'm here, and like, I'm ready to learn. Am I going to be that far behind? And he was like, no, you're okay. Like, you can get through the rest of this class with how late you started. And so he would have us write papers that would be like, that you'd find in like a newspaper. So he'd have us go find sources. Like we'd have to go talk to people. And we needed like 3 or 4 sources for each paper. So we had to go interview 3 or 4 people.
Mhm.
And I had to record it all and then quote them in the paper. And so the first paper I did, and I tried my best to follow the guidelines, and I got an F on it. So I went and talked to him, and I was like, what am I doing wrong? And he like pointed it out, and I was like, okay, next time I'll do it right. So I showed up to class every single day, until that paper was due, and I was engaged, I was learning, I was asking questions, and I got all the sources that I needed, and I did all the quotes, and I tried to fix everything that he told me, how to fix, and I still got an F. That continued the entire semester.
Did you talk to other students? Were they getting Fs?
I talked to other students, and they weren't. They were not getting Fs. So I compared papers, and I had them read my papers too, and they were like, they couldn't find anything that I was doing differently than them. And so for a while I thought, is this dude just giving me, why is this dude just giving me Fs for no reason? And when I talked to him, he'd be very friendly with me. He'd act like, we were buddies, and, I just couldn't figure out what was going on. And I tried so hard.
Mhm.
Like I did my very, very best to try and pass this class because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to write like this. And I thought I was following the rules like to a T. I'd put hours into a paper, 10, 12, 15 hours into a paper, just writing it and rewriting it and editing it. F. And the final project came up, and I asked him, I was like, if I get an A+ on this project, will I even be able to pass your class? And he was like, it'll be really close, but you'd have to get an A+. It'd have to be a perfect paper. And I was like, I'm not going to do it. It's like I've talked to you multiple times. I've tried, I've rewritten these papers. I've put everything into these papers, and you've failed me every single time. So I'm just not going to do this final paper. And he's like, okay, well, you'll fail the course. And I was like, well, that's probably what you wanted.
So you dropped out?
I just went in every single day until that paper, and I just didn't turn it in. The kids were like, you're not turning in your final paper? I was like, no.
But you still went to class?
Yeah. I was like, no, I'm not. They were like, well, why? I was like, because I'm failing the class anyway. I did everything in my power to write the best paper for this dude. And he still
Was he
failed
black?
me every single time. No.
No.
Some white dude.
It's collusion.
Some white dude. It's almost like he wanted to fail me.
What's his name?
Bouchelon. Brandon Bouchelon. And he always told us stories that he was like a great, interviewer. He interviewed Bob Dylan, and like he got to the Beatles, and I would ask him like, is there somewhere like I can read, your articles, because like I wanted to see how he wrote and try and like mirror that, so maybe that's what he's looking for.
Mm-hmm.
But he would never no, you're not going to find any of my stuff on Google. You're not going to find any articles from me. I was like, why? You know, it almost felt like he wanted me to fail. And that just was so discouraging to me.
And like,
I haven't taken a journalism class since.
that's
What I wanted. That's what I wanted to do. And then after that, I was like, fuck this. You know?
it's weird how a teacher can have so much influence on you because like you're discouraged and like don't want to anymore. Whereas I switched my major because I had such a good teacher, and she was so like encouraging when it came to writing, and that's why I'm in English right now.
I think I need to switch my major to English.
In high school, Miss Kaiser, you had her, right?
Yeah.
Were you in my class with Malik? Oh, I can't say names.
No,
No.
I don't think so.
But
I remember you guys talking about it, but
wait, was your class the same where she like
I had her for
just
AP
sucked the
Psych.
girls' asses?
But yeah, she did.
Yeah, and like the guys, it was just like they were just secondary to everything.
Mm-hmm.
But my class was like that where we would do like peer reviews, and I'd read like other girls' papers, and I'm like, this shit is not better than mine. Like I know for a fact, like I know I'm not the teacher, but like I know the effort and like the research that I put into this, it's not better than mine.
Right.
Just from like an objective standpoint. And I'd get like D's and C's. I don't think I ever got an F, but these girls would get A pluses and shit.
She was racist.
So that fucking made me hate writing. But
Yeah.
fast forward a year or 2 years, here at IPFW, I had a teacher where same thing. Like because like when I write, I put a lot of effort, a lot of time. Like I do it like usually in one sitting, but it's like 8 hours or whatever. So every paper I do, it was just like strenuous, and she like really appreciated what I was writing, and she pulled me aside a few times and told me that I should really switch my major, and like she totally like restructured my thought of writing, whereas Miss Kaiser just destroyed it.
It's weird because like, you know, with writing, it seems like for you and me both, like we really take a lot of pride in putting something down on paper and making it like really good, you know. And I took a lot of pride in my work with that teacher, and you took a lot of pride in your work with Miss Kaiser, but you know, we got failed, and so it just totally like shot everything down. It's like you have this perfect image of what it is in your head, and then you put it on paper and you're like, this is it, and then you turn it in and someone tells you, nope, that's not it. You know,
and actually I left a big piece out that the final for that class, Miss Kaiser, like every other paper, like I honestly can say I wrote all myself, did the proper research, but the final paper I said fuck it. Like I was sitting next to Armando in the computer lab the day before, copy and pasting, just changing words, chunks and chunks and chunks, and I got a fucking like B+. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. It feels almost personal, you know, because there's a part of you.
Oh, it is personal because I mean it's your thoughts and shit.
It's your paper, yeah. It's your paper.
You can really discourage like a student,
yeah,
from fucking flunking them on some creative shit that they've done.
For sure. And I want to take this guy's class again, just to show him like, hey, like you remember me? Like I'm back. You know, let's do it again. You know, and see if I can do it right. But I don't know if I want to waste the money just to prove him wrong.
That teacher that encouraged me to change my major, that's the class I'm in now.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I'm back right now is because I didn't want to come back to school and hate it. So I took her to like make sure that I like it.
Yeah.
So far, so good.
I've had some really good teachers here, actually. I've had some really good ones, and I've had, you know, Brandon Bouchelon is probably the worst that I've had. And if he's watching this, fuck you, Brandon. He's a nice guy, but man, he's just an asshole. I wonder if he felt like I was trying to like be more clever than he was with my writing.
Yeah, that is an aspect of
or
it.
Or if
that
I was trying,
as men, it's just like
maybe he felt a little like, you know, what's the word? Maybe he felt threatened by my writing, or maybe he felt like it was better than his, so he like failed it, you know. Because I don't think it was bad writing at all, you know. It's hard to write news articles because you can't put your opinion in them. And so a lot of the time that I wrote, you know, they only had to be like 2 or 3 pages, you know. Actually writing it didn't take me long, an hour and a half. The rest of the time, I was going over it and editing it to make sure that my opinions were not in it. You know, to make sure it's exactly what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I couldn't get it right. And that
I wonder
discouraged
what
me.
the thought process behind grading, because like so much shit goes into account, like how the student was acting that day, and
Right.
like if you think the student is like cute or not, or
Mhm.
like you don't like the guy, like it's so much shit you have
Oh,
to take
yeah.
into account,
For sure.
or you have to like wipe out of your system and just grade it.
Yeah, you can be very prejudiced when it comes to grading, I think. For sure.